Guys, can you believe it? A full year has passed. That's right, I've owned this truck for an entire year now. And so today I'm going to officially review the truck. This, of course, is my 2024 GMC Sierra 2500 HD. It's a gasser, and so I'm going to give you my own candid thoughts today. I'm going to share everything that I like about the truck, everything that I dislike, and I'm even going to share the problems that I've had with it. So stay tuned. Now, if you didn't catch my initial build video where I introduced the truck almost exactly 1 year ago, I'll put a card up for that video and a link below. In fact, I've done over 24 videos on the truck over the last year, so I'll put a link to the entire playlist if you want to binge watch. And thank you in advance for supporting the channel in that manner. But no, on a serious note, I really want this video to be geared toward the individual who's looking to purchase an HD truck. You know, maybe you're on the fence between GM, Ford, or Ram. And so you want to hear from a real owner. And guys, by the way, this video is not sponsored by GM. I bought this truck entirely with my own hard-earned money. And so these are just my candid thoughts on the truck after owning it for a year. And guys, it is absolutely gorgeous out today. 66 degrees. We got a little bit of fall color there in the background. But I want to start out the video by discussing all the things that I like about the truck. And because this is an HD truck, which means the engine and transmission are the heart and soul of the truck, I'm gonna start there because I do really like the L8T. And I gotta confess that the new Allison 10-speed transmission, it was definitely a factor that swayed me toward GM. I mean, regardless of whether Allison actually made it or just approved the design of it, I do like the fact that it has a modern 10-speed transmission. And it is incredibly smooth, kind of like butter. But no, seriously, it's really difficult for me to complain about the engine and transmission. Sure, it's not a rocket. In fact, if I were to do a drag race against, let's just say, a Ford Super Duty with the 7.3 Godzilla, I'd probably lose. But I didn't buy the truck to do burnouts and be the first to get everywhere, right? You know, I bought it because I wanted a big, reliable gas engine that has plenty of power, especially for when I tow. And in my opinion, the L8T, it really delivers in that regard. I mean, there's just no drama. The RPMs are low. And so I think that 10-speed transmission, it really does do a great job. But second, let me share just how much I like the overall appearance of this truck. Of course, it got a minor facelift for the 2024 model year. And while mine is more of a base level truck, it's an SLE, just one step above a work truck, essentially. I really think that the way GM put together all the exterior design elements, it really looks like a sharp truck. In fact, I've gotten comments from folks who don't know that it's an SLE, or maybe they don't know where the SLE trim falls in the lineup. Folks who look at the truck and just assume that it's a top of the line trim level truck just from the outside. And so I think that really speaks to just how nicely GM put all the elements together. I mean, it sure does have a lot of chrome, especially on the front there. I've kind of gotten used to it. It's grown on me, but I really like how it ties together, especially with this paint. This is the sterling metallic. I just think it's a really sharp looking truck. I also really like with this platform, the overall form factor, being a slightly longer cab here, slightly longer bed. It's right at 6 foot 9 3/4 inches to be exact. And in my opinion, it's really kind of like the Goldilocks of trucks. It's not too long like a crew cab with an 8-foot bed where maybe you have some difficulty getting in some parking spaces with the length. Yet the bed here, it's not too short where it's, not as functional and usable when you're hauling stuff. And so I'm really just a big fan of the overall platform and the overall appearance. I think it's just a really sharp looking truck. Now let me carry that forward and talk about the interior, because GM of course did refresh the interior, mainly up here on the dash in the front for the 2024 model year. And this is where I think the truck, it just really shines. For me personally, I always struggled to like the previous model year interior. It was just kind of plain and really outdated in my opinion. But with this 2024 refresh, I think GM absolutely nailed this interior, especially the dash up front here. I mean, I really like all the the different finishes, the illusion of different materials, and then of course there's the giant 13.4-inch infotainment screen in the landscape format. The new interior just really makes this truck functional and aesthetically pleasing. In fact, I noticed it seems like GM is carrying similar design language over to the new 2025 Suburban and Tahoe. And I just really applaud them for that, because this interior, it just has some really nice design elements, even in base trims like mine. I also really like the Google-based infotainment system here. I know it's gotten some mixed reviews online, but for me, it's worked pretty much flawlessly. You know, the menus, they're very logical and intuitive, and they're easy to understand and access. And you know, a while ago, there were several articles about how there was kind of a paywall, so to speak, with the navigation here, and you can see the message that pops up. And it's actually not the navigation that you have to pay for. It's actually the 4G access. You know, if you think about it, with the Google-based infotainment system, it's basically like having another phone that's permanently mounted in your truck. And so just like your phone requires 4G data or Wi-Fi, you know, data connection to access the internet to get, you know, updated map data and so forth, it's the same here on the truck. And so that's really the paywall that the articles were referring to, in that you have to subscribe to the OnStar, the 4G, you know, data plan. But there is a workaround to that, because this is just like a phone essentially. You can actually pair this to your home Wi-Fi, and so that when you're in the garage, you can hook up to your internet, and then you can download offline maps just like you can do on your phone, so that when you don't have internet access, you can still, you know, navigate. Now for me, I keep going back to the fact that there's Android Auto and Apple CarPlay built in here. They're both wireless, and so if you have that, why would I want to use the built-in navigation over using my phone through Android Auto or Apple CarPlay, right? I mean, it just seems like that's going to be far more integrated and updated, you know, easier to use. And so for me, having that paywall to subscribe to the 4G data, it just hasn't been an issue, because it's got Android Auto and Apple CarPlay. And I think for most of us, that's what we're going to be using to navigate. I just think that's going to be far superior compared to the built-in navigation on the truck. Also will mention that the Google Assistant, and I would assume the same for Siri, all of that works flawlessly through the system. And so I really like this a lot, and I think this system is definitely GM moving in the right direction, being Google-based. It's just very user-friendly. So for me, I've really enjoyed the infotainment system, especially the giant screen here. I mean, when you put it in just a full map, I mean, just look at all that you can see. It just makes it a lot easier to make everything out. So this is something that I really like on the truck. And then last, I'll mention two other things that I really like about my truck. Second to last is really the overall SLE packaging. You know, like I said, I've got an SLE truck here, which is basically one step above a work truck. And I did a previous video going over all the things that are missing from my SLE truck. And essentially in that video, I highlighted just how feature packed this truck, you know, actually is. I mean, a lot of brands, they force you to go to a higher trim level truck just to get something like a leather wrapped steering wheel, or, you know, the nice 13.4-inch infotainment system that I just talked about. Or how about adaptive cruise control, right? Just some of the nice accents that are on the dash there that just give it a nice visual cue there. So I really think that the way GM packaged the SLE trim, I'm just really getting a lot of value, an incredible amount of features for the price, and just a really solid value proposition. I mean, the last few trucks that I've owned, they've been really higher trim levels, like the LTZ and the Silverado, or the Laramie and the Ram, but I have absolutely no regrets here with my SLE. It's just a lot of value with all the features and options at the price point. But the last feature that I really want to highlight here is the MultiPro tailgate. And you know, this has been around for a while. I got to confess that every time I had seen this prior, you know, demonstrated it never really impressed me. It just kind of seemed a little bit gimmicky to me, or just like extra expense on a truck. But after using this firsthand, I've come to really appreciate it. I am almost every day opening the tailgate and putting things in the bed, pulling things out. And so this configuration alone here, just being able to get, further access inside the bed without, straining, I have come to really appreciate this feature. And then combine that with all the other modes, such as having this stop right here. This is probably the second most used feature with the MultiPro tailgate for me, where I'm hauling lumber, 8-foot dimensional lumber. There's plenty of clearance, by the way, about 6 to 8 inches or so. But having this stop here just to make sure nothing slides out of the bed, I mean, this is just very functional, very useful. And then of course to have the full step there when you drop it all the way down, just going the full width of the bed essentially. I think it's just a really clever design overall. I mean, I'd go so far as to say that if Ford had invented the MultiPro tailgate here, that may have very well pushed me over to getting a Super Duty, of course combined with everything else that Ford has. And so that's how much I like this MultiPro tailgate. But guys, let me transition next to my dislikes. And guys, I got to confess, I had to think really hard on these. I mean, I don't want to come across as a complainer, because I really am thankful for this truck. It's just really something that I've enjoyed. But I also want to be transparent, and so I did come up with some things that I don't like about the truck, or another way to put it would be maybe things that I would change if the opportunity presented itself. Okay, so first dislike, there is no current gear display, meaning that I don't know what my current gear is on the 10-speed transmission. And of course I can count the shifts, but who does that, right? And it's not that seeing the current gear would, drastically change my driving habits. I'm probably in the minority here, but sometimes I like to see what gear I'm in. Maybe it could be right below where the PR NDL is located there, and it would show me what my current gear is while I'm driving. I think it'd be neat to see in real time. In fact, I actually did a previous video where I showcased a code reader, a third-party code reader that would show me the current gear. And it was really neat to be able to see that, in real time while I'm driving, especially if I'm towing. But of course, I'm not going to hook up that code reader just so I can see my current gear. So I'd love to see GM add that current gear through maybe a software update, especially since this is all a digital dash right there, and at least make it an option if you want to see the current gear. So if anyone from GM is watching this, I love your truck, but please, I beg of you, give me a software update so I can see my current gear. Second dislike is there is no 12-volt outlet anywhere in the truck. It's not up front here, it's not in the back of the cab, it's not in the bed of the truck. There's no 12-volt outlet anywhere. And I actually didn't realize this until maybe about a week or so after I bought the truck. And I thought at first maybe it was due to my bench seat here, or the fact that I had an SLE trim level truck. But it turns out none of the 2024 trucks have a 12-volt outlet, regardless of the trim level. None of them do. Of course, if you have the previous interior in the work truck or the custom trim, you get it then. And to be fair, I did do a previous video where I showcased that I discovered GM actually did give us a high-powered USB-C port right here that has power delivery over it. And in my tests, I discovered that this actually outputs 40 watts approximately right here. And so what that means is you can get a USB-C to barrel plug connector, so that if you're trying to power a, let's say a dash cam, a radar detector, or maybe a backup camera for your RV, you can actually get a USB-C to barrel adapter that will power then your unit. And so you can do that, but that is an extra cable that you gotta get. Or of course you can use the 120 volt inverter. It's got a 400 watt inverter plug down here, and you can convert back to 12 volt power and use it that way. But I still think it would be nice to have just at least one conventional 12 volt outlet, maybe 10 to 15 amps. Somewhere in the bench seat configuration, it could go right there, and I'm sure there's space with the console to work it in as well. So I'd like to see that maybe in a future model year. Okay, third dislike. I know I talked about how much I love this 13.4-inch infotainment system previously, but there is one pretty significant glitch that I've encountered from day one. And that is, for me personally, I'm almost always connecting through Android Auto wirelessly when I drive. And so when the truck starts up, it connects through Android Auto wirelessly. No issues with that whatsoever. You know, the previous music or podcast, whatever I had playing will resume like it's supposed to. But for some reason, for me, and I don't know if I'm in the minority here, but for me, it never resumes the actual screen here to show what I had in Android Auto on the previous trip. Even if it's just, 5-10 minutes since I turned the truck off, it always seems to default to the Google-based infotainment center screens like this one here. And so I have to tap the little Android Auto. I actually made just a little shortcut up here to actually get back to this screen. So again, I don't know if I'm in the minority here. I've tried different phones. And what's really weird is I don't have this problem in other vehicles, not made by GM, of course, that, connect through Android Auto wirelessly. They always go straight to a screen like this one here, whatever I left off on. Whereas in the GM, I've got to tap, that Android Auto shortcut. It's a small deal, and I've almost gotten used to it to the point where I don't even realize what I'm doing. I'm just tapping that button real quick every time I start the truck up. So I don't know if that's a glitch, where Android Auto's to blame, Google's to blame, or the phone manufacturer, GM, I don't know, but it would be really nice to iron that out and just have it go straight to this screen upon startup. All right, other small dislikes, the dead pedal. And I brought this up on the very first drive on my truck where I did a longer range unladen MPG test. And I noticed it right away because basically GM has this dead pedal. It's not actually part of this mat. You can see it's right back there. And in my opinion, it sticks out just a little bit proud, more than I would like it to, such that my left foot, where I want to rest it, right here, I wish it was pushed in, just another inch or two to give me just a little bit more leg room there for my left foot. I mean, I can certainly slide it over, but for me, it just seems like this dead pedal, it is behind the brake pedal. You probably can't see that in the video, but when you look at the gas pedal, it looks like it could be pushed in just a little bit to be kind of lined up with where your foot might be on the gas pedal. So again, I might be in the minority there. It's something I've gotten used to, but if I'm being transparent, I would like to see that dead pedal pushed back in just a little bit. Then last two dislikes, going back to the Multi-Pro tailgate that I like so much. When this is open and I'm driving, I get an alert on the dash there telling me that the inner tailgate is open. However, if I have the main tailgate, the full tailgate open, I don't get an alert. And so I would like to see an alert to let me know that, hey, the whole tailgate is open. And this actually came up in a previous video I did talking about the tailgate recall. Some viewers commented and said, hey, on their trucks, on their GM trucks, they do get an alert when the main tailgate is open in addition to the inner tailgate. And yet other users commented and said, I'm with you. I only get an alert when the inner tailgate is open, no alert on the main. So I don't know if it has something to do with my trim level here being an SLE. Maybe some trim levels get that alert, some don't. But regardless, I would like to see an alert with the main tailgate open, since I already get one with the inner tailgate. And then last dislike is going to be down here, and that is with the 7-way PWM stuff going on right here, the pulse width modulation on the 7-way towing connector. It seems to cause issues with backfeeding when your RV has, lithium battery or solar, where the voltage is coming in higher than the truck expects. Now there is an open a recall or a service bulletin to fix that. I haven't done it yet on mine. I plan to do it in the next weeks or months ahead. But beyond that, beyond those disconnection issues and warnings you get with the PWM technology, if you want to use, let's say, a Furrion backup camera on your RV, then you've got to get a filter of sorts and plug it into the 7-way first, kind of like a little pigtail, to make it work. And then I've also noticed that when my RV is connected, I have a fairly new RV over here. It's got LED lights on it. And I've noticed that when it's connected to the truck and the truck is off, the tail lights, the tail lamps on the RV kind of pulse and flash, almost like a strobe effect. And so that has something to do, again, with the PWM You know, I'm sure there are benefits to that PWM technology, that architecture, but it just seems like it wasn't maybe thoroughly tested in real world situations with towing and such. And so hopefully GM can continue to iron out those issues. All right, so those are my dislikes, but let me talk about next problems that I've had with the truck. And I'm gonna start with one that I think has probably been the most widely circulated problem concerning the L8T, and that is the oil consumption issue. And let me just say right out of the gate, I have not experienced this problem where I've been losing, you know, just drastic amounts of oil, especially between the two oil changes that I've completed so far. In fact, I actually did a video on the last oil change where I actually measured out the oil because I was just curious, you know, how much I would drain out of it. And for me, nothing has been abnormal. You know, it's my understanding that every engine out there, especially the bigger ones, they're going to consume some oil, you know, between oil changes, but you shouldn't have to be, you know, topping them off repeatedly within that, you know, 6-month interval or however long you're going between oil changes. And so I have not had that problem, but across the different videos that I've done on the truck, I've had several users comment that own the L8T, and it seems like a lot of them, it's the ones that have it in maybe a cargo van or another configuration. And it is a real problem for them. I mean, they're talking about, you know, having to top off, you know, half a quart, a full quart in between changes. And so it's definitely a real problem for some, but just based on the feedback and the comments I've gotten across the videos that I've published, it seems like the vast majority of L8T owners, including myself, do not have consumption issues. So it definitely is a problem out there. I'm not sure what's causing it exactly, but for me, and I think the vast majority of people, it's just not an issue. Now, as far as real problems that I've encountered, I have never had to take it in for service or warranty. In fact, it has never been back to a dealership or anywhere else for that matter since the day I drove it home, you know, a year ago. I've done all the basic maintenance with the oil changes and such. And so, spoiler alert, I haven't had any issues where I would have needed to take it in for repair. And that's about, you know, across 9,000 miles or so over the last year. And for those curious why the mileage is fairly low, I have another vehicle, a Wrangler, that I drive regularly. And so the daily driving gets split between those two vehicles, which is why the mileage is a bit lower on the truck so far. But in transparency, I'll mention a couple problems that I have encountered. These are extremely minor, but the first was about a month or so after ownership, I started noticing a rattling sound in the cab here while I was driving, and, you know, hitting bumps in the road, and it seemed like it was getting louder and louder, just a, you know, obnoxious, annoying rattling sound. And to me, to my ears, it sounded like it was coming from the driver's side door panel here. You know, maybe like something had come loose, a retainer clip or something, and had fallen down and was just kind of rattling, you know, across the bumps and such. And so I was convinced it was coming from the door panel here, so I actually removed the entire door panel, went all the way into the cavity, into the sheet metal there, and found nothing. I mean, it was completely clean. And so I was really stumped and baffled. The rattling continued. I kind of gave up for a while, and then all of a sudden one day I thought, well, let me just check here in the engine bay and just see if anything is going on. And guys, would you believe it that this one single screw right down here on the coolant reservoir had kind of backed itself out just enough, and that was the rattling sound. It really surprised me because I was hearing it all the way in the cab. It was very loud, and I guess my ears were just playing tricks on me, so I tightened it down. Of course, it hasn't reoccurred since then. Probably just a one-off issue. You know, I'm probably in the minority there, but that was what was causing the rattling. As far as other squeaks and rattles in general, the truck has been absolutely solid. I mean, some vehicles I've owned, you kind of get an annoying rattle and it's coming from somewhere in the dash or somewhere where you just can't get to and you can't solve it and it just persists. I have not had that problem on this truck. Everything is just really solid inside. And so I think that's just a testament to the build quality, you know, at assembly originally. And then guys, the only other problem I can think of, and this is me being very picky, this is really minute, but sometimes when I go to shut the truck off, sometimes I've noticed that I have to push significantly harder on the start stop button. I'd say maybe 1 out of every dozen times or so. You know, I'll be in the garage, ready to shut my truck off. I'll go and push the button here and the truck stays on. And it's like I got to push it just a little bit harder in order for it to get to shut off there. So, you know, maybe I just need to get used to really mashing in that button. You know, maybe I've just got a really soft and gentle touch, right? But I haven't encountered that problem on other vehicles, so for whatever reason, for me, I just have to push it a little bit harder. But guys, that's it. Nothing else to report. Really just a few petty problems in the end. And you know, I just want to close out the video by saying that I have thoroughly enjoyed owning this truck over the last year. I know it's only been a year so far, but I think this truck is already on its way to being my favorite truck that I've ever owned, period. It's just so versatile, you know, being a gas truck, having that 3,300 pounds of payload. It's the perfect size and length for both maneuverability and then just being more functional with the longer bed here for hauling. And then I think GM just got so many things right here with the 2024 refresh, and I'm really seeing a similar trend with some of their other products, you know, with the Colorado and the Canyon, and then like I mentioned with the all-new 2025 Tahoe and Suburban. I think that GM right now is just really putting out some great solid products, even to the point that I would say after owning my 24 Sierra right here, that I am tempted, or at least a little bit interested in some of the new Tahoes and Suburbans, you know, maybe as a future family hauler. And so I just want to say I have no regrets whatsoever purchasing my Sierra here. In fact, I would go back and repurchase the same exact truck, same exact configuration, same color, really same everything. I mean, I can't say enough positive things about this truck. And so as an actual owner of this truck here, I would highly recommend it to you. And like I said before, I have done over 24 plus videos on this truck, so I'll include a link to that playlist down below. Guys, if you have any questions about the truck, I'll do my best to answer it for you, so definitely drop me a comment below. And as always, thanks for watching.